Hello again, and welcome to the Master's Voice. I am Celestial, and you're welcome to this channel. To old and new subscribers alike, you're very welcome. The Master's Voice is an audio and a visual resource that you can find on multiple streaming platforms. I also have quite a few social media where if you're someone who consumes short form content, little snippets and things like that, you can find me on TikTok, you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Telegram and Facebook and Twitter as well. I think that's where you can find me. I have a prophecy. It's not a new prophecy. Many of the prophecies that I'm covering at this point are not new. I give glory and I give thanks to God because over the last 5 years, I've been able to cover a very wide range of prophetic material that God has given me. And I thank God that I've been able to use my time wisely, because what that means is even though I still have over 100 prophecies that I still haven't done yet, as well as the fact that God is giving me information real time, at least for the most part, I've covered almost every single topic that God has broached, whether it's a topic of war outside the United States, war inside the United States, the fact that the red horse of Revelation chapter 6, which represents war in general, will be coming to many nations around the world. I've covered famine. I've covered natural disasters such as flood, tsunami, volcanic eruptions over the years. I've covered the decline of international economies. I've covered the destruction of international currencies. I've covered all manner of personal sin, every type of personal sin that you can imagine, every type of personal sin that is corrupting us as humanity as a whole, as well as every type of sin that is weakening and worsening the body of Christ. I've covered that. And so the fact that God is giving me real-time updates is something that seems to be received with mixed reactions among Christians. Some Christians use it almost as a point of mockery. They use it, in fact, as a reason to doubt. They say, why would God talk to someone this much? And yet you live with your parents, you live with your family, you live with your wife or whoever you live with. Maybe you're shacking up with someone and you're not married to that person. You speak to that person every day. You talk to people in your life every day. So for yourself, a mere mortal, a human being that a mosquito could bite you and you could die, a bus could hit you, the plane that you're planning to get on this weekend could crash, and that would be the end of your life. You're willing to elevate yourself to the point where you understand that you have a right to speak. So you have a right to speak and you can speak every day. But the creator of the universe, you imagine that he is somehow shoved in a corner. He is so unimportant, apparently, that after he gave his words and his mind in the Bible, then he's no longer allowed to speak. And even if he does want to speak, he has to do it maybe once a month. And then that's what his creation can accept. So his creation, the Bible says that we are created in the image of God, right? He made us like himself. He said, let us create man in our own image. And then male and female, he created us. But now the creation thinks that everything that it can do, it can think, it can have feelings, it can speak. It can do that every day, but the creator somehow is limited. God is absolutely not limited. God has conversation with his friends every day. The people that God holds close, when they open their Bible, he will always give them a fresh word, because the word of God is like bread to us. And the Bible says that bread makes man's heart glad. It strengthens us. It's a picture of us actually taking in the physical food that we need to feel encouraged, to feel robust. We don't do well when we haven't had food, which is why, of course, fasting is such a glorious sacrifice to the Lord. And so if people don't understand that God is speaking real time here on this channel, then obviously they're going to have a problem keeping up with the things that God is saying. But God is not looking for people who are moving in doubt, disbelief. He's not even moving people who come here just to pass the time. I've gotten to a place where I'm just going to give it to you straight. Not that I've ever not given it to you straight, but somehow that finesse that used to be on the prophecies, that overexertion of myself to try and make you understand, to make you listen, to make you understand. This is very important. Please pay attention. Take this into your heart. Think of your children. Think of your families. That thing is wearing off, and everything operates by grace. Everything that I'm doing here is by the grace of God. It's by the strength of God. It's by the ability of God to help me to speak, to help me to put his point across, and to allow myself to be used by him. Whether it is anger he wants to express, whether it is disappointment, whether it is fury, whatever God wants to express, that is what I'm here. But at the same time, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for anyone. The grace to do this work is coming to a sliding point. It is coming to a point where it is definitely tapering off because of the amount of time it takes, because of how much of it is still not done. Also, most importantly, because of how fast we are actually reaching a convergent point. We're reaching a convergent point. You live in a country, the money's not good, the economy's not good, people are feeling it with jobs, people are feeling it because of everything that they took in 2020. There's a lot going on. Natural disasters here, allies bombing other allies on the other side. Things are happening in America, and in the midst of that, I just have to let you know that we're coming to a convergent point, and I'm not going to overexert myself at all for any reason. I'm going to bring you the prophecies, give it to you exactly how it is, whether you scroll, whether you stop, whether you watch only 10 minutes, whether you watch the whole thing. You are literally in the driver's seat of your own faith and your own interaction with live prophecy in these end times. Just a moment, please. The prophecy that I have is concerning war. War is coming to the United States. War inside the American borders. War it's going to be both. America is going to get involved in conflicts outside her borders. And to get involved in conflicts outside the border, you're going to need soldiers. And to get involved in conflicts inside the border, you're going to need soldiers. Either way, you're going to need soldiers. Soldiers are going to be required to sign up. And what God showed me this morning, it really took me by surprise. It really took me by surprise, because when I finished everything from yesterday, then obviously it was it was morning. I just went to bed to get a couple of hours before starting today. And the dream that I had was really surprising, not for any other reason except that it definitely wasn't on my radar. You know, you go to sleep and then God will just do what God will do. The title of this dream is Forced Conscription. Forced Conscription. And I received this dream October the 3rd, 2024. And so I read to you from my notes, even though the dream is still fresh in my mind. This morning, I had a brief dream about what is coming to America. Many things are happening now, and many more will happen. But a lot of them have already been revealed for us by the Holy Spirit. Therefore, there is no reason for us to be in the dark about the revealed truths that Yah wants us to know. What I saw will affect people of all demographics. Money's not going to be that much of a factor that will be able to save people from what is coming, even though, on the other hand, it will not be totally useless. So money will not be able to get, for instance, the rich and the wealthy out of the pathway of what I'm going to talk about here. But at the same time, it can't be totally discounted. It's not going to be 100% useless. It's not going to be without merit when it comes to who has to do this and who doesn't. All that I know is that very briefly this morning, the Lord Jesus, my Heavenly Father, showed me what's coming, that people are going to be currently involved in this. So there are people, he showed me what's coming, and it involves people who are currently involved in it, people who used to be involved in it, and those who will be made to be involved in it. And the Lord is saying that we ought to know what is coming. Before I put the camera on, the Lord was just saying to me, Celestial, it's time for war. It's time for war. It's time for war. And that, of course, hearing something like that is part of why my demeanor is a little bit somber, is a little bit heavy, is a little bit low. And the reason for that is because I very well know, God has always said it. I brought it out in quite a few prophecies. I very well know that people in the United States do not have a righteous apprehension of war. People in America are very war hungry, even though many will say, no, we're not, Celestial, that's not true. It absolutely is true, because the 6 of you gathered here on the Master's Voice Prophecy blog do not represent the general mass of people. We are 341 million people here. And so there's not even a million people here. There's not even 500,000 people here. And not everybody pays attention here. So to think that a small gathering of people who have Jesus Christ in their hearts and they're trying to cleanse their robes and prepare themselves for the times that are coming, and they say, no, we don't have a heart for war. You don't represent the mass of the people. The mass of the people are very strongly bunched up into political enclaves, blue enclaves and red enclaves. And depending on what type of provocation is put in front of the American people, they're always going to be willing to go and fight another war. And that is because up to this point, the last war that was fought here on U.S. soil that I know of was the Civil War. And I don't even know if there are any people still alive from the Civil War. It was a long, long, long time ago. It's a historical event. So the last time that war came to the American soil and brought with it the difficulties, brought with it the blown off arms and the blown off legs and the bullets in the chests, the taking away of young sons, destruction of the economy and destruction of property, buildings, displacement of peoples. The last time that happened was so far back that slavery was still legal. So obviously, things like this tend to fade from a population's memory. The war that people know now is the war where you get dressed up and you watch the boys go to Yemen, and half the time the boys will not go to Yemen. They'll just send drones and bomb the people in Yemen, bomb the people in Syria, bomb people here and there. It's this kind of distant warfare, and the citizenry, the people of the United States, get to sit back and just follow the war on their phone. They get to follow the war on their phone. They get to follow the war on a tablet or some other device and just say, hey, what's happening in Israel? What's the latest in Ukraine? And so because of this disjointedness and this disconnect and just not feeling what war brings in your flesh, the sacrifice, the pain, the limitation, the fear, the running, the exhaustion of it all, people do not have the right understanding of what war is. They don't have the right understanding of what combat is. They don't have the right understanding of what engagement in battle is. And that is because thus far, America has always been victorious in everything she put her hand to. And also, America doesn't understand that her continuous victory is because Jesus has always been standing by her side, whether fully supporting her against enemies or tolerating her because a cup of wrath has been piling up against a nation that always fights gratuitous wars against others. But now what God is showing me is that war is coming. And like I said, the dream startled me simply because I wasn't expecting to see anything like that. And so I dreamt today about people going to serve in the U.S. Army. And at first I didn't know what the dream was about. It wasn't immediately apparent because of the way that God did it. The way that God did it is I found myself suddenly at some kind of camp that I'll just call, retreat, like a retreat. You know, when the boss says, we need to get to know each other better. And there's one of these athletic camps, there's activities and there's kayaking and there's bungee jumping and things like that. And everybody in the company is invited. We're going away for 3 days for team building exercise. It'll be great. And they usually do that to foster better relations between the people who are working in an office. So at first I thought that we were just at a camp or a retreat. We got there and it was at night. I didn't see the point where we arrived. You know, sometimes the dream will just open, the dream will just start, but I will have certain information in my mind. So I didn't see how we got to this place, but it was a very big house. It was a one-story house with so many rooms throughout the house, and bathrooms for men, bathrooms for women, and that kind of thing. And so we got there. And it wasn't a social event. It wasn't a party. So no DJ, no loud noise, no food, mingling, anything like that. At the time the dream started, I was in the room that I was assigned to, and I was in there with two friends of mine who are males. Now, in the dream, we were great friends in the dream. My life was enmeshed with these two guys' lives, and I knew them, and it felt like they were my brothers. And so we had been assigned a room like that with 3 beds. Their 2 beds against one edge of the wall, and my bed alone at one edge of the wall. And they just felt like family to me. But then when I woke up, I was like, I don't think I know these people, even though one of them in retrospect does look familiar, does look like someone that I do know. But in the dream, they were like brothers, and we were assigned in our rooms, and I could feel from our room, I could feel that this building was packed with similar situations of males and females assigned to different rooms. And in those rooms, people were sitting, people were opening snacks, people were sitting, everybody had their own bed. People were sitting, opening snacks, talking, no TVs. There were no TVs in this room, just beds. I would almost say like bunks, exactly when you go to camp, but single beds, not the doubles. And people were just having interactions and things like that. And so all shared quarters, okay? Every room was a mixed room, a co-ed room, male and female assigned to the room. And I'm in this room with two friends that feel very familiar. But then when I thought about it in real life, I'm like, when I woke up, I was like, I don't know any people like that, except one vaguely. So none of us were sleepy. High conversation was going on in this room. We got in and we put our stuff down. Everybody sat on their beds and we were just talking. We were catching up. It's a long time. It's so good to see you. How's the family? How's your mom and your dad? Wait, what? You're married? You're married now? You have children now? That kind of thing. We're talking, we're remembering high school. We're talking about mutual friends in common. How's this one doing? How's that one doing? That kind of thing. We had a good time just catching up. And like I said, the sense was that everybody else were doing it. And I would look through the door occasionally. I would see people wandering by, people in bathrobes, you know, they're wandering by, brushing their teeth, heading to the male only or the female only area. But eventually, after all this socializing, I started getting tired. And I started thinking, you know what, I should get ready for bed. It's pretty late. We've been talking for a couple of hours. I'm tired. And I look by my bed and I see a black suitcase there, one of these rubbery ones, you know, the new ones that they have. And I see this black suitcase with the thing pulled up exactly the way I brought it into the room. Apparently, I just dropped it there and I thought, okay, I need to look in there and get my sleep stuff and then find the ladies and go freshen up, get ready for bed and then come back. And then just as I was thinking that, all of a sudden this signal went off. So the signal that went off is not the kind of signal that goes off whereby I can hear it with my ears, but definitely a signal went off. It went off across not only this building that we were in. There were lots of these large flat-topped buildings across a very vast ground. Okay, it was a very large area with many of these big buildings. And this signal goes off across the whole of the place, and yet it is not an audible signal. And the minute that signal went off, these two guys in the room with me completely changed. It was almost as if, even though they'd been hanging out, even though they'd been socializing, there was something as if they had been waiting for that signal, but I was not aware that they were waiting for it. The minute the signal went off, their easy demeanor changed. They looked at each other. One of these guys had glasses. One of these guys wore glasses and the other one did not. Their easy, laid back demeanor immediately changed. One had been lying stretched out across his bunk talking. The other had been sitting with his legs crossed, you know, like crossed Indian style in the bed. All of a sudden, the two of them looked at each other. They both sat up, right? And they turned to face each other. And then they both put their feet on the ground. They swung their feet on the ground. And when these guys put their feet on the ground, I was very surprised to hear this thump. I was very surprised to hear this thump as if they already had shoes on. And so I left my side of the bed and I came around because I was startled and I was thinking, what is this? And when I walked around to the side where their two beds faced each other and they were both sitting upright and both of them had their feet about to stand up, I looked in shock to see that these guys had their feet laced in full Army issue combat boots, full Army issue combat boots. And I just stood there kind of dumbly staring at their feet in shock, thinking, who has their shoes in the bed? Who lays down with their shoes in the bed? Who sits and folds these kinds of boots into the bed? And so I had no more time to register anything than that thought. And when I looked at the both of them, it's the first time that I saw their clothing. Both these guys had been sitting in the room talking with me, passing time, and I had absolutely not noticed that both of them were in full camo mode. I guess it looked like the kind of clothes that they would wear in basic, whereby they have camo pants and they have those black boots that lace up. I don't know how high Army boots go, but I just know they have these boots that lace up. And then they were both wearing olive green t-shirts. They were both wearing olive green t-shirts, but the one who had been lying on the bunk, the one without glasses, he had on that button-down jacket that they had. So he had that button-down jacket, and the one with glasses had his jacket laying on the bed. And then he turned to take it and he started putting it on. And I was staring at the both of them as if I'd never seen the U.S. Army uniform in my life. I was in so much shock. I'm at pains to say this because of where this dream is going. I couldn't even speak because of my shock, but the both of them were looking at me with this kind of knowing look. And the look was like this. We're really sorry about this, Celestial, but please try to understand. So sorry about this, but please try to understand. By this time, the signal had gone off, and now there was a lot of activity starting to happen in the building. Okay, so I'm confronting these two, not confronting them, let's just say facing them in shock. Like, I thought we came to this place because we're supposed to be having, I don't know, team building or something, or reconnecting. What is going on? And why are the two of you dressed in army clothes? And they're both looking at me, and the building is basically coming to life. At a time, maybe I would say 11:30 or maybe even 12:30 at night, when you would think that, oh no, people, adults are about to go to sleep. The building starts coming to life. And I said, no, wait, what's happening? What's going on here? Where are you guys going? And by this time, they now take out these massive Army issued duffel bags. The bags are very big. They're made of sturdy material, and the bags themselves are camo, and the bags have this black typeface typed on them in each of the guy's name. I don't know if it's the surname or the full name, but each soldier's surname or full name has been printed in block capitals on. They both toss these bags, and then they begin to take their stuff out of the dressers. So I don't even know at what time. Maybe they got there before me. I don't know. I don't know what time they'd had to unpack, but now they're taking out all their stuff. They're taking out socks, shoes, shirts, just, these clean white shirts. I guess what they would call their dress clothes for later. They're putting all this stuff into the duffel bags, and they're both trying not to look at me, but they're packing, and I'm saying, wait, the Army? The U.S. Army. You guys, you two, have signed up for the Army. Don't you know what's going to happen if you join the American Army? And by this time, I've moved into a little bit into the row between their beds, and they're both packing on their beds. They're turning to the mutual dresser, taking their stuff out of the drawers. And I'm standing there, and I'm bringing what I think is a cogent argument because I'm really in so much shock, and my voice is going higher and higher as I keep trying to pinpoint what's happening here. I keep saying, the Army, of all places, the Army. It's the U.S. Army that the two of you have signed up for, and they're both quiet. And occasionally, the one with glasses and the other one are looking at me like, sorry, Celestial, sorry. And my voice is going higher and higher. And you know how it is when men are trying to avoid a confrontation. They're not really answering me until I finally burst into tears. I literally started crying helplessly as if this is my own brothers. And I just thought, well, that's it. That's it then. I'm never going to see them again, because all this time we've been friends. And I never knew that they were in the Army, and now for sure they're going to die. They're never going to come home if they go out with these Army trucks that were coming. And I knew that trucks were coming. I could see, let's just say spiritually, I could see in the distance a whole convoy of trucks traveling by night with the lights. I don't know, they put something on the lights so that they're not really bright. I guess that's what they would do in enemy territory, but they were doing it here. The truck lights were not as full as they should be. And I saw the convoy of trucks coming towards the barracks to pick up not just these guys, but it turns out a ton of other people in this place. And so I started crying so hard that one of my friends, he left his Army sack and he came to put an arm around me. And he said, please stop crying, sis. There's nothing that we can do about it now. It's too late. And I said, but how could you do this? How could you do this after everything that I've said? After everything that I've told you? After everything that I've written? You still joined? After all the hard work that I was doing, you still joined? Why did you join? Why did you sign up? How could you do this? And then the other one looked over, right? The one with glasses. And he said, I'm really sorry, sis. But to tell you the truth, we saw the blog too late. They had already reached out to us by then. And we said, yes, we agreed. They made us a good offer, and we thought, why not take it? And I said, no, 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 no. It's not about money and it's not about the offer. There has to be some way that you can get out of it. Trust me, you have to get out of it. And the one who was still standing and holding me with one hand, he just said to me, no, we can't. He shook his head. He said, no, sis, we actually can't. You see, there's something in the offer that says once you sign, you can't back out. And we both already signed, so we've got to go. We saw the blog, though. We really did. We just saw it too late, Celestial. A lot of people saw the blog, but they just saw it too late. They've already done things they weren't supposed to do, and there's nothing we can do about it now. And, he was being reasonable, but I was inconsolable at this time. I was inconsolable of thinking, I just connected with you guys again. It's been a while. And now you're telling me that of all places, you're going off into the United States Army, this same U.S. Army that I've been talking about here for years, telling you that these people are going to force your children. I was telling us here, I said, these people are going to fight their wars and they're going to need bodies. They're going to need warm bodies because they're going to go, please listen, God says that America is going to provoke Iran. America is going to provoke Iraq. America is going to provoke, he was saying to me just before I started, he said, everywhere that America has gone and fought a war, these are the people that are going to be highly provoked against the United States in the end times. And I was saying it here and saying that the U.S. Army needs warm bodies to fight its wars. And America is not the kind of country to ever concede defeat. America is not the kind of country to ever bark and cause a bark echo chamber to start where the other dogs start barking, because traditionally when the American dog barks, everybody else just whines and keeps quiet. But what has God said in all the old prophecies concerning Russia, China, concerning North Korea, Taiwan, concerning Japan, concerning, I think it's Germany as well, is going to be against the United States, concerning all her enemies, concerning Iran. God says that America is unable to read the room. America is unable to read the changing climate. Okay, so the social climate has changed. The global order has changed. The military order of the world has changed. But America forcibly continues to believe, continues to gaslight herself, continues to delude herself that she can never be removed from the number one position. She thinks that she will always sit at the top because she has been at the top for so long that she doesn't actually believe that anybody can remove her from there. And the Lord says that this stature, okay, this type of life, this type of thinking is known as complacency. There was a prophecy where I think there was a whole 15, 20 minutes just on complacency and how America doesn't think that she can ever fall down. I think that prophecy is called Run. And as a result of that, God says that that kind of person is never watchful. That kind of nation is never careful. That nation assumes that there can never be any kind of threat that can really hit her and hurt her enough to destroy her or make her a victim to other nations. But that is not the case. So I've been saying here that the government was going to conscript young people. And then I think it was in 2023 or 2024 that they started having these loud discussions in Congress and saying, oh no, who wants to conscript girls? And I'm not letting my daughter go and fight for this country. What kind of country have we become where we need the women to re-up and come in a larger amount and fight the wars and things like that? Well, that is what is going to happen. They're even going to take underage children as young as 16 are going to be compelled to join the U.S. Army. They're going to lower the age of signing up because America is going to be desperate for warm bodies to fight the wars and the conflicts that she's going to be in, including when the Civil War comes. So once I realized that these guys had gone and signed some kind of offer, they signed some kind of offer and they were telling me in the dream, Celestial was so sorry. We saw the blog too late. We had already signed. And even if we wanted to get out of what we signed, there's a clause in the contract that says that now that you've signed, you can't back out. So I was inconsolable about everything. And I just left my suitcase and I ran out of the room crying. And I just started heading down the hallway crying, and I didn't know where my feet was taking me. And as I was walking, I saw a lot of females, a lot of army females. All of them had pulled their hair back in this very neat, tight, close bun to the head. You know, women can do buns, but in the army, there's nothing like messy bun, French bun. It was a very tight and neat bun. And I saw hair in neat buns rolled tightly at the back of their head. And then they were wearing the army cap on top. Black girls, white girls, and even some girls that looked to be of Japanese and other types of Asian descent. All the women had the same serious expression. All the women were dressed exactly like these guys had been dressed in the room. They all had that bag. Apparently this bag, it looks like a duffel, but when you finish packing it and zipping it, you can actually just hang it on your back like that, and it will hang in a vertical way. And they were walking in the hallway, all of them going towards the main exit. And I just had to stop and let them pass. And so I stopped and I let this long procession of women go past. And as I was watching them, my tears on my face, I was just thinking, you too? You ladies too? You ladies also went and joined the army. You ladies also went and signed this contract. And then after they finished, I carried on walking, half running in this hall. And then I went straight into another room. My feet had led me straight into another room. And in that room was a family member of mine, a cousin of mine, a person that I never thought to see in such a place, because to my knowledge, this person has absolutely no involvement in the army. This person is a mom, a mother of children. Okay. And when I saw her, I started crying again, even worse than before. And I said, what? Cuz you can't do this. What are you doing? You're a mom. You're a mom. You can't do this. Think about it. What if you get killed? What about the children? You have children. And I just, in a panic, I just went to my cousin and I put my arms around her waist. I was holding her from the back and I put my arms around her waist and I was just trying to hold on to her, and I started begging with her and pleading with her not to do it. But she told me exactly what my male friends told me. She said, it's too late because I already signed. They made a good offer. The offer was so good that I thought, why not? I'm about to retire soon anyway. So I thought, what harm can it do? That's why I signed. There's nothing I can do about it now. And I was just crying, continually crying. And I kept hugging her tighter and tighter until what she did was she put her elbows down like this and she simply dug them in to where I was hugging her. And then she just popped them out. And as you can see, I don't have the biggest or the strongest hands. So she just popped them out. And then she turned around and she looked at me and she said, look, don't get emotional. This is happening now. And it's happening all around the country. There's nothing to be done about it. Just try and deal with it, okay? And then she picked up her bag and she went out and joined the procession of women that I had just passed by. And so this is what God was showing me. And then there's one last person that I saw in my dream. And I didn't see this person face to face the way I'm describing that I had face to face encounters with others. God showed me this person in a barracks. It might have been the same place that I was, or it might have been another place that I was, another place where I wasn't, another place where the recruitment was happening. And by this time, the Lord made me understand in my sleep that the place where I was actually a kind of goodbye center. You know, when I guess the Navy people are going, everybody goes off to the wharf and then they get on the ship and the families are there waving and everything. This place that I had come was actually a place to come say goodbye to your loved ones. And if you were lucky, that is, if they weren't shipping out already, you could maybe get a night or 2 or 3 with them at the Army's expense. The Army was going to pay for the accommodation, pay for the food, and pay for you to spend time with your loved ones before they leave. And so that is what it was. The person that I saw, whether it was in that same barracks or somewhere else, God showed me a vision of this person for me to understand how they handled being called into the army, because this person, God used them to represent those who have been in the army before and will be called back. And that person is the man that we all famously know as Marcus Rogers, the man who is currently acting as a pastor in the body of Christ, even though it has been made very clear here on the Master's Voice Prophecy blog that this man is actually not a part of the fivefold ministry and that God never called him to be a pastor. And so I saw that how Marcus Rogers came to this place was a little bit different from how the other people had come to this place. Marcus Rogers got a phone call and then he got a letter. He got a phone call telling him to look out for something in the mail. And when they called him, they definitely identified themselves as the U.S. Army, and they called him, they knew him by his name, and they said, oh, you know, soldier, this and that and that. It's good to hear you. Good to hear that you're alive and everything out there. And anyway, there's going to be something coming to you. And then they sent a letter to him. And the letter was telling Marcus Rogers that he was being actively enlisted in the U.S. Army and that he had to go. They were expecting him to ship out for basic training. And they said to him that he had to report for duty. In the letter, Marcus was told that all able-bodied American soldiers, regardless of their current level of fitness, they were being told that unless you had a debilitating disease or something that completely disqualified you, maybe one eye not working or the loss of your hand from previous combat, they were being told that regardless of any kind of low to medium disability, and also regardless of how you had left the Army previously, whether you were discharged honorably or dishonorably, the letter told Marcus that all able-bodied American soldiers were required to report to their nearest fort for processing and reorientation before being fully re-enlisted in the Army. I saw that the letter came to Marcus Rogers and that he took his letter very seriously. In fact, he read the letter at his home and he responded to it, and he had brought his letter with him to the family center or whatever he is. When I saw Marcus Rogers was in a room and there was nobody else there with him. So I don't know if he came without family. I don't know if he decided to make the journey by himself, but he was in a room that had the same 3 beds, but there was nobody in the room with him. And he was also sitting in his bed. He had gathered up all the pillows from the other empty bed and he had put them behind him almost as a kind of support. And this man was leaning on these pillows with his feet in the bed. And he had his letter on the nightstand next to him, and he was thinking. He was thinking very deeply. Occasionally, he would put his hand up like this behind his head to support his head, and he was thinking. And what God showed me is that Marcus Rogers was the only person, okay, I think maybe he was in my barracks, but God was showing me that Marcus Rogers was the only person who had the right response to that letter that came from the Army. All the people that I had interacted with were either Gen Z, they were millennials, and even some of them in the barracks were Generation X. I'm not sure if they had ever enlisted before or if the place where I was only for new people. But what I saw is that exactly what I explained in the beginning of this video. All the people that I interacted with did not seem to have the right gravitas and understanding of what the Army was calling them to do. I had a grieving demeanor because of all the things that God has told me that will happen to people who are in the Army, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, the Navy, the SEAL Team 6, Marines. It doesn't matter. God has already showed me what will happen to everybody who is enlisted in not only the armed forces and the military, but also the first responders in the United States, also the cops in the United States, ambulance workers, those kinds of people. When final invasion and serious international warfare gets going in this country, all the people who represent frontline warfare, all the people who represent frontline fighters and things like that are going to be very greatly slaughtered. They're going to be expressly targeted by the Russians and the Chinese. And so the response that Marcus Rogers had to this letter was deep sobriety. And that's because this man is a family man. This man is a father. This man has responsibilities. This man has people who are connected to his life. So he didn't have any of this giddy schoolboy or schoolgirl nonsense of, yeah, we're going to get out there. We're going to show them we're the Americans. Nothing like that. Marcus Rogers was so sober in his heart. And occasionally he would pick up his letter from the nightstand and he would flick it open like this, just flick it open like this. He would look at everything it said, and then he would put it back down on the table. And he was also fully dressed. He had his combat jacket off. He had the olive green shirt on, the camel pants, the boots, laced up in the bed, fully dressed for training. But like I said, his face was serious, and God showed me in this man's heart that he has a perfect understanding of what the U.S. Army is. Marcus Rogers is not under any kind of illusions that the American Army is a place that just loves its people. And as you can hear, they make offers. I know that one of the things they offer you is an education. Another thing they promise you is a great salary. They promise you you'll see the world. They promise you great benefits. But God was showing me that Marcus Rogers is not the kind of man to fall for the American scam. He exactly knows the grueling nature of the Army. He knows exactly how hard they train you. He knows exactly how much they oppress you, how much they control you, and they tell you no because we're shaping you into a fit man. And the man that I saw in this vision, just simply, if you gave him an option, Marcus Rogers would not go back to the Army for anything. He's quite fine with the life that he had. And yet God showed me that there was something that they used to compel this man to go back to the Army. God says that Marcus Rogers has a perfect understanding of what the U.S. Army is. He knows what the Army can do to a man. He knows what the Army can take from a man. And therefore, in the entire building, he was the only person that God showed me fully knew what he was getting into. He knew what they were calling him to. He knew exactly what Army life could be, and everyone else was clueless. But I saw that this man had the right approach to being called back. And God was telling me this: please listen, all who are listening. God says that every single person who used to be in the Army, they're going to re-up you without asking you. God says that they're going to re-up. Re-up simply means re-enlist. You were in the Army, you did one tour, and then you realized, you know what? I've had enough of Afghanistan, and I'm not going to sign up. A lot of Army people, they at least sign up twice. But there are those guys, they do their time, and then they come back and they go and work on Wall Street. And you will never know. Some of the people who have been in the Army, you will absolutely never know that they have signed up and that they have served time there in various areas, not only active combat, but in various areas, support, teams, administration, stuff like that. They've still gone to serve their country. But God says that everybody who's been through the processing, been through the Army database, he says they're going to sign them all up without asking. All of them who were in the Army before, they will re-enlist them without even asking them if they want to go. And that is the process God showed me with Marcus Rogers. They called him and they told him, yeah, there's a letter on the way. It's a little package. You might want to look out for it. And then when it came and he opened it, it was telling him that he was being called back to active duty and that he should come in for his basic training and his complete reorientation, I guess, because things are going to be a little different. When people go back into the Army, they're definitely going to have a few new perks that they've come up with thanks to their transhumanism years of work. And I'll explain that in a moment. And he said people are just going to be re-enlisted without being asked if they want to go. Yah called it mandatory service. America is going to go into mandatory service. And God said that mandatory service has existed before in the United States. He says that there's provisions and laws that exist to compel people to go and fight for the country. But he says that it's hardly ever needed. Obviously, because America is a country that's in her cushy era. She's in her princess era. And so when was the last time that they ever compelled anyone to join the Army? People join the Army because they want to. They don't force anyone now. But the time is coming where America is going to be desperate for manpower and personnel. She's going to be desperate for manpower and personnel because no matter how many people she sends to the front to fight the Russian soldiers, they're simply going to kill them, because I told you that the Russian soldiers have some kind of gun that can tell the difference between an American and a Russian. I shared that dream already where I saw some kind of gun. They were compelling American soldiers to even fight for the Russian side. The Russians were making Americans fight the other Americans, you know, the ones who don't want to give in, the Sons of Freedom, the rebellious, the guerrilla warfare ones when Russia comes here. And they were compelling people that they had processed through the camps to go to the war front and fight. And I said that I saw this American who was so tired of it. He wanted to kill some of the Russians that were around them, monitoring them and everything. But when he turned the gun on the Russian soldier and he tried to fire, he fired 3 times. He wanted to pump 3 bullets into the guy. Nothing happened. The gun just made this dry click and it didn't fire. And then the Russian soldier turned to the American guy who was like on the ground, I guess sniper position or something like that. And he shot him right here in the forehead. And when the guy died, it turns out I was in his body and I came out because I had been watching through the guy's eyes. And then the Russian came and picked up the gun and then he just did and the bullet went off. He just shot it into the ground and the bullet went off. And I was wondering if maybe it is a fingerprint sensor on the trigger that recognizes who it is. But then how does that explain that you're in a war? Obviously, they'll give you a gun that can fire, right? How does it know when you're pointing it at a Russian, it's not going to fire? But if you point it at an American, a bullet will come out of it. Strangest thing I've ever seen. And so mandatory service, God says that laws exist here in America to force people. And one of the things that God says they're going to use to force people to join the army is those who still have student loans. Still have student loans. He was telling me just that because I was thinking, God, really? A lot of people, you see them on social media. Whenever this topic comes up, people laugh themselves into oblivion and they say, oh, I'm sorry. I could never join the army. I have gel nails. Too bad. I won't be able to join you guys in your latest war. And so I was just thinking to myself, God, how are they going to compel people to go and fight? And God says there's a lot of them who have student loans. The government is going to compel them to fight on account of their student loans. He says they will mandatorily enlist them in the army and they will have to go. And so that is the prophetic word here, God showing that there's going to come a time of forced conscription. The title of the prophecy is Forced Conscription, October the 3rd, 2024. And on January the 18th, 2023, I had a dream. And in that dream, war definitely was here in the United States. And it was an ongoing, very brutal, extremely frustrating war that had lasted almost 6 years. It had lasted almost 6 years because I was a soldier in that dream, God forbid, and I had done, I think, 10 tours. And I don't know how long a tour is in real life, but I know then because of the desperate need for soldiers, excuse me, please. The tours were shorter. And I had done 10 or 12 of these things, just re-upping because I was separated from my family. America is going to be a country whereby, because of natural disasters, because of all kinds of things that are going to happen to change the American topography, the country is going to look so different in the future. I saw in the dream that the roads were so busted up. American roads are so perfect right now, but the roads were so busted up that you could not go anywhere unless you had access to one of these heavy-duty off-road cars like a Hummer or a military type vehicle or one of these off-road dirt type of vehicles, something like that. And so people were separated all over the country, but I had been fighting in that war for so long, and I was so sick of war that I decided that I would go home. And so at the end of my last tour, I did not re-enlist, and I started journeying across the country with one guy who had been in my unit, and then another guy, both of them Hispanic guys that we met on the way. And I was just talking about how the country was so destroyed at that time, and there were so many needs, and there was so much struggle. And I said that people were dying from disease at that time in the United States. There was a lot of disease. Old diseases had come back and brand new types of infections and everything. So there was a lot of sickness. There was a lot of disease. But I also mentioned that people were dying from emotionally shattered states. Okay, they were dying from something that is just called consumption. It was mostly women who were suffering from this. Their hearts were just broken. Their so-and-so would go off to fight at the Miami front, and then he would die. And, in the old days, consumption was something that women had if they gave birth to a baby and the baby passed away, or if their husband went off and fell into a ravine while he was hunting for deer to feed the family. the woman would just waste away. And God was showing me and telling me, you see, Celestial, people can also die of a broken heart. People can die of a broken heart because of the hardships that they're forced to endure, because of the situations that they're forced to endure. America was so hard, and America had so many types of things that could take your life. Gangs was one of them, but I said that as I was walking on that road, we didn't have a car, but as I was making that long journey home, just walking basically across the country, I wasn't scared, and those two men weren't scared, because we were some of the worst things that had ever happened to America, the kind of soldiers that have just done all kinds of things. And so we walked by day, we walked by night. All of us were armed, and none of us were scared of anything. And because we were wearing U.S. Army uniforms, nobody bothered us. And I said also in that dream that America was a land of checkpoints. America was a land of checkpoints. The whole country was divided up by checkpoints, and we came to so many checkpoints, but it was always easy for us to cross because we were soldiers. We had the rights. Excuse me, please. I'm just trying to find the dream so I can go back to it. January 18, 2023. Yes. So we were all special forces soldiers, me and the guy who came from my unit, as well as the guy that we met up with. And so we never had a problem getting around the checkpoints. But I just said that as we were passing through the landscape, America had been so broken down. And here, people were eaten up by fatigue, sickness, depression, malaise, and emotional breakdown. And also, I saw a lot of the walking dead. Walking dead just means these were camps with soldiers that had gone through so much physical damage to their bodies that the doctors knew, with the limited medicine that they had, limited treatment facilities that they had, limited skilled staff, a doctor would be able to look at a person who came in and just know, this person doesn't have much of a chance. We just have to give him some shots of morphine, the little morphine that we have, and make him comfortable, make her comfortable, because it's not going to be an easy journey for them to get home. And so lots of barracks across the United States, lots of who goes there, who are you? And then we would just say, we're soldiers. And it turned out in that dream, this is something that I said, that those who are going back into the army, they're going to have programs in the army this time when you go back, or it may have been there all the time, but you were just an ordinary soldier, an ordinary person. You don't know about it. But the U.S. government definitely has the super soldier program. They definitely had enzymes. Let me find out everything that they give you. They give you some kind of shots. Okay. And it carries with it genetic enhancement. So of the three of us, I was the one who had been receiving the shots. But then for some reason, I don't know, maybe because I discharged from the army or something, my memory was wiped. And I forgot. And I think they planted a cover story in me that, oh no, you were just an ordinary soldier, but then you got sick and we're trying to save your life. And so a random soldier in a random barracks when you were traveling asked you, do you want this and that and that? But it turned out that there was another story behind that story, because I had been one of the people who had been selected for that program, and they were genetically enhancing men and women in the army. And the Hispanic guy with me knew that, but he couldn't understand why I didn't remember that, because he was one of the people who he had wanted to get into the program. And I said there was some strange dichotomy with super soldiers. Everybody wanted to get into the super soldier program, but they only took people who were smart and strong, naturally gifted people. So if you were naturally a fast runner, they definitely wanted to take you. And if you were naturally tall, naturally built, smart people like that, those are the people they wanted to put in the program. And then they were plying us with some kind of drug that changed your entire genetic makeup. And here's some of the things, Lord, help me to find it. Just a moment, please. Here's some of the things that would happen after you started taking the super shots. You would not be tired. You would not be tired. The men and women who were taking the super shots could do amazing time. You know how they get you to travel? I don't know what it's called. Clicks. We can travel 10 clicks or 15 clicks miles, maybe. In a day, those people could go incessantly and they would need very little food and very little water. They also had very little response to cold or heat. Excessive cold, excessive heat never bothered a super soldier. You could send them out into inclement weather, very bad weather, storms, snowstorms, whatever. They would be just fine. You could have them out in the super hot sun repairing Jeeps and stuff like that on days when the other soldiers would have to hang back because of too much heat, risk of a heat stroke. They didn't feel any of that. They hardly ever got sick and things like that. And they were very much built up. So whatever man or woman naturally has in their cells, they became so much more built up because of that. And it was an open secret. It was a top secret program in the army, but at the same time, everybody knew that this aspect of the super soldier program existed and people were trying to get in. And that was just it. You were just an elite. You were automatically above other soldiers, and that had the good side and the bad side. Some people avoided you because they all felt that you're not human anymore, which is a very fair assessment. If you take any kind of genetic modification, which the U.S. Army is so known for, practicing various types of experiments on its own people, you guys know that when you go out there, you take a ton of shots, mandatory shots, and you know good and well that if your grandmother asked you what was in those shots, you don't know what you have taken. And so some people avoided those in the super soldier program because obviously they bulked up and they looked extremely different. And some people just felt, well, you guys are not human anymore. But other people wanted to be very close to them because they wanted to know, can you put in a good word for me? Is there anybody you could talk to me, tell me who to talk to because I want to get in? And this Hispanic guy had been one like that. And so just letting you know what God is saying here about what's coming in the future. America is going to force people to join the army. America is going to force men and women. America is going to force those who are under the age of 18 to join the army based on the fact that they're going to be desperate for warm bodies and they're going to use different types of duress. The only one that the Lord has really told me is the student loan, because I really am curious. People don't want to fight in this country. People want to stay home and watch Hulu and order Domino's pizza. Nobody's trying to get out in the mud and operate guns. I know that there's groups of people who can't wait to do that. But by and large, the current population that we have is just not geared for war. Current population that we have isn't even geared to be patient if they get caught in traffic on I-95. So they definitely aren't trying to get outside and be in a war. And yet God says that people will be made to fight. I think that people's children will be one of the ways that they will compel people to fight. I'm not sure if the government's going to threaten people's kids or something, maybe use CPS as a way to get people to sign up. But I do know that once you sign this contract, as various people shared in the dream, it will be ironclad. And so that is the word of the Lord. Forced conscription is coming. And it doesn't matter if you're a newbie, as some of the people I saw in the dream, and it doesn't matter if you were once in and then you signed out, as Marcus Rogers was used by God to show this is a person who has served in the army, and God was showing that he knows everything about it, and he doesn't have stars in his eyes concerning what the U.S. Army is. And I was just seeking the Lord because these people, such as this man that I'm speaking about, a lot of them think that, I don't know, it's very odd. A lot of them think that I need to watch them, that like I need to watch their videos or watch their podcasts to know who they are. And they have no idea that God comes to this house and tells me so many things about people. Just as I mentioned in the beginning, it's so odd how people in America really, really don't understand God. And a part of me is excited because we're all going to go in that time where God is going to show us who he is. All the people who ask, oh, why would God come to you and say this? You're going to find out God is going to come to you, to yourself, exactly like he did to John Melinda. He's going to tell you to your face. Since you don't believe that he actually has private consultation with people to unburden his heart when he knows that there are people he can trust, he's going to come to you, to your face, to tell you that your time is up and that you're going to lose your life. There'll be many different types of videos going up on the internet when the Lord really begins to move among his people. Ancient Israel knew that there are times when God will come and God will move in the midst of the people. A lot of people are going to start reporting a lot of personalized encounters that are going to close their mouths forever and completely change the way they see God, change the way they understand how he works. A lot of people think, oh, she watched this and she watched that, and it's not the case. God comes and he talks about people and he shows me things. But of course, the job is that if something isn't part of a prophecy, I don't need to bring it up. A lesser trained person, actually just a lesser woman, could come on this internet and say a lot of things, could come on this internet and say, God showed me this and God showed me that. But if it's not required for the prophecy, then I'm able to just keep things under advisement. And so that is what I saw. And all I will say to you is this: America is going to have such a great defeat. And I've always said it. If you're an Army veteran, you're 71 years old, well, God bless you, sir. You're safe. Nobody's calling you at 71 to go and fight. But you in your 40s, you've come out of the Army, you think, well, I'm done with that. You're 38. You and your wife both served, and now you're out, and the two of you have opened a successful, I don't know, petting zoo, or you guys are doing some kind of post-army workout boot camp training thing, training people like you used to train at boot camp and helping people to get healthier, and it's great. By all means, do not sign anything that the government gives you. It's better that you run off and you just live in the Sierra Nevadas, eating beans out of a tin until they forget about you, then you come back to the city. It's better to do that than to sign up in America's army, because the people who sign up in America's army for what is coming, they're going to kill you. They're literally going to kill you. They're going to try drugs on you. And if the drugs are not compatible with your system, if the drugs are not successful with your kind of metabolism or anything like that, you die. They're going to basically send you to all these hot spots. They're not going to, for instance, if the Hiltons, Paris and Nikki Hilton, right? If they have a brother, if there exists a brother, or the Kardashians and there exists a brother, they're not sending a Kardashian brother to go and fight Iran. They're not doing that. It's your son, your daughter, your 16-year-old that they will compel to go and fight this war. It's your husband. You've only been married for 3 years, and it's been 3 fantastic years. And then they will call that man up and tell him that his birthday fell on the 15th of July, and he's able-bodied, and besides, he owes $150,000 in student loans, and he's got to work it out somehow. They're going to send people. The word that's coming to my mind now, the word that the Lord is giving me, is just expendable. When something is expendable, you know that there's more where that one came from. There are other men who were born on the 15th of July. And so they're just going to reap all of them. And when they send them off to various places, and remember, the Lord is not with you, America. The Lord is no longer with you. It doesn't matter what these false pastors and false prophets are telling you. God is actually no longer on the side of the United States. So when they send you out, this will literally be the case of Samson after Delilah shaved his head. Whenever he had his hair, that was the strength, the promise, the covenant that the hair of the Nazarite, Samson, should not be cut. And so whenever he went out and he was in proper alignment and posture with his covenant with God, Samson was undefeatable. He could not be beaten. It didn't matter if you brought a whole field of Philistines. They could not touch that man. However, when his hair was cut, and his hair got cut, why? Because he opened his mouth to tell a woman the secret to his hair. But that was part of breaking his covenant, because he was told to never reveal the secret of his strength, that it was in his hair. And how did he end up revealing it? Because he was always spending his time with prostitutes like Delilah. And what else? He was breaking the Nazarite vow by being a man who loved to drink. Nazarites don't drink. They don't take anything from the vine of grapes. Samson completely broke every single aspect of his covenant to God. And therefore, God left him. Samson started running with the wrong women, drinking, and God would always be tolerant with Samson. But the day came when he simply left him, because you know why? The posture of Samson's heart was never to be obedient. Samson lived a life of pushing the envelope. How far can I go and still get away with it? See, I'm still strong. I'm still Samson. That's America. Every American should read the story of Samson. That is the autobiography of this nation. The story of Samson. The story of one who knows better and continues to push the envelope while saying the children are not appointed to wrath. Samson's head got shaved. And then they said, the Philistines are coming, the Philistines are coming. And he woke up and he thought, I will go and defeat them as I always had. But the Bible has one chilling statement there. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. And when his enemies got a hold of him, what they did to Samson, they plucked out his eyes and they made him an indentured servant, a slave, walking around in the mill grounding flour. Has anyone heard of slavery coming to the United States before from this channel? Don't go and fight wars. I've always said that sinners should not fight wars. People who are in sin should not go into combat because God will not be with you. God will not defend you. God will give all the strength to the North Koreans. He will give all the strength to the Taiwanese and the Chinese. Every time they fire, they won't miss. The army is not a good place to be. The army is not the best career choice to make. I've been saying it here for years. If you are in the army, have sense and start to think about your next year, your next 2 years, how you're going to sign out, especially if you're coming to the end of a furlough. Don't sign up again. Get out, change your number, move to another place so that if they send a letter, they won't even find you there, and stay out. All right, then. God bless you. I am Celestial, and this is the Master's Voice Prophecy Blog. The prophecy you're listening to is Forced Conscription, October the 3rd, 2024. A second prophecy that was referred to in this prophecy is called Super Soldiers, and that is from January 18, 2023. I will link that one in the description box for you. God bless you. Please do not interact with strange people that are trying to reach out to you in email. Please don't interact with anybody who's coming into your Instagram inbox, your Facebook inbox, TikTok inbox. I never do that. I'm not reaching out to anyone. So please do not interact with these people. They are scammers. They're trying to get a hold of your financial information. They're trying to use you. They're trying to lie to you. They're trying to tell you, I see a great future for you. All you have to do is sow into my orphanage in Nigeria. And we all know that I'm here in Brooklyn, in New York City. So God bless you. Thank you to those who support the channel. It is very much appreciated. There is absolutely no compulsion to do so. If you do feel like doing that, please make sure that you read the instructions underneath one of the videos. Please do not do anything until you've read the instructions. I think this will be the only one for today. God bless you, and until I see you again, goodbye.